favorite things about working in construction is getting in a truck and riding around with these guys and say, I built that.
Yes.
You see that school? I built that.
I'm Tyler Simmons. Welcome to In the Yard, a Western States podcast. From employees with decades of experience to customers working hard in the field. Join me for conversations with some of our industry's best and brightest to hear their stories in the heavy equipment world. Episodes will drop bi-weekly, so see you in the yard. Wayne, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Good. Can you give us a quick introduction to us of who you are and what your role is?
Yeah, so I'm Wayne. I'm the CEO at the Idaho Associated General Contractors. The AGC is how most people know us. It's the largest community of construction professionals in the state of Idaho. We've got over 720 member companies. And when a company joins, then everybody who works for that company is invited to be an AGC participant. And so every orange barrel you see in town, chances are 90% of them belong to an AGC member. We build roads, bridges. We also build schools, hospitals. We build churches and temples. We build all kinds of stuff. An AGC member built the room we're sitting in, actually, right here at Western State. We represent construction and the commercial side. There's a separate organization that represents home builders. And your people who are involved in this know that home building is kind of a different game than commercial building. And so they're two different organizations. But on the commercial side, and the AGC represents the process from beginning to end, from bare ground to when we hand over the keys. So not only the general contractor, but the excavator, the guy putting in the sewer and water, the painter, the electrician, they're all AGC members. In fact, of our 720 members, only 110 of them are actual general contractors. The vast majority of our members are excavators, electricians, painters, plumbers, people doing the actual construction work.
Oh, that's cool. And so as being part of the AGC, what's your guys' main role and how do you guys help these businesses?
Well, so like I said, there's a lot of things that we do, but there are four things we do exceptionally well. The first one is business. It's our primary mission to help our members be successful. And so for some businesses, it's helping them save costs. So we run a health insurance company. And if you are a small business owner and you want to provide health insurance to your employees, you can partner with us and we can get you a discount after just going and buying it off the street. We run the Idaho's only online plan room. So if you're looking for work and trying to figure out who's building that Walmart over there, we have that information and we make that free to our members. They don't pay any subscription rate or anything like that. It's just a free service we give them. We have discounts at places like Western States Equipment. If you're an AGC member and you do that, we have the same thing with like Enterprise Fleet. We do it with Kendall Ford. You go in and tell them you're an AGC member, you get a discount on top of your thing. So anything we do to help your business be more profitable. That's step one. Step two is we try to connect people. So with that many members and that diverse group, it's our job to get subcontractors next to a general contractor next to an owner, and we make those things. So we do 5 golf tournaments a year. We do 2 short sporting clay tournaments a year. We do bowling, we do poker, we do a big gala with 1,000 people at it. Anything we can do to get people together so that they can make a new connection, build your network. Especially for people starting out in construction, that's a big plus. Just being able to meet somebody and figure out, right, if I want to work for this general contractor, who do I talk to? How do I get in front of them? And that's what the agency does. So help people be more profitable, help them meet people. The third thing we do is we're the lobbyist, the advocate for the organization, for the industry. For people who are in construction or natural resources, or I imagine most people who are familiar with CAT, might find it hard to believe there are people that don't like us. They don't like mining. They don't like timber. They don't like construction. There are people who'd be very happy if there's never another road built in the state of Idaho.
Oh my goodness.
We know that's not realistic, but they're out there working to slow growth and to slow construction. And it's our job to keep that moving forward. So we have lobbyists. We go to the legislature. We have a whole team of lobbyists in DC. But on a more granular level, it's about helping the industry move through the government red tape. A project we're working on right now, if you want to set up a new asphalt plant or a new concrete batch plant, right? So let's say you're building something and you need to set up a concrete. From the time you file your application with the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality to when you can actually turn on the plant, averages 14 months.
Oh my goodness.
Sometimes it's over 2 years to get a permit. So this year, the AGC is leading an effort with DEQ to streamline that process. It's our goal to go from over a year to 3 months. And if we can get that regulatory burden cut, if we can streamline the process, it's going to make life for construction that much more easy. Nobody else in Idaho can do that. Only the agency can do that. So that's our and then the last thing we do really well is we solve tough problems. So we're at the forefront of the industry's workforce development issues. We're at the forefront of the environmental issues. Anything that is too big for a single company to take on, we like to get involved in.
Oh, that's cool. So those are some 4 big major projects and areas you guys focus on and improve in the industry every day.
We do. We spend a lot of effort every day, it seems, to advance that. And like I say, I'm not a construction expert. That I can't build a bookcase nonetheless a building, but I'm good at getting the right people in the right rooms, in making the right introductions, helping people do this. It's like I mentioned the DEQ thing. So we're going to completely rewrite how asphalt and concrete plants are licensed in Idaho. I have no idea how to do that. But I know the people who do know how to do that. And I know the regulators. And if I can get them in the same room and talking the same language, then I've done my job.
Oh, there you go. So it's just helping people understand everybody's perspective and also the need and desire in the industry to move forward and to make it faster.
That's exactly right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like to think so. It's really exciting for me. My kids get asked all the time, well, what does your dad do? Well, he works in construction. Oh, what is it about? Well, I don't really, I work construction adjacent.
Adjacent.
Right?
Influencer.
Influence.
Yeah, you're like
I'm
an
near-
influencer,
I'm
but
near construction. I mean, I do have a hard hat and
There
other
you
kind of
go.
stuff, but you don't want me sawing anything or hanging anything.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And how long you been at the AGC? How long you been involved in this?
Yeah, so this is now my 12th year at
Okay.
AGC. I was in state government before.
Okay.
And so I came over, yeah, it seems like it's been forever, but it's been 12 years now.
Wow, cool. So what have you seen change in the industry and kind of construction in your 12 years at the AGC?
That's a really good question. Technology has really evolved in the 12 years. Just look at the stuff, the equipment that you provide to people. The amount of technology that now covers it's not just you just go get in a bobcat and run across there. Everything is measured. Everything's laser censored. Everything's tracked through GPS. Um, we can now know where every piece of equipment is and what its status is and that type of stuff. The same is true on a whole other side of the technology. Going from when I first came to AGC, we actually had 4 physical plan rooms with blueprints. And people would come in and they get out their ruler and they would be doing takeoffs. And now all that's digital, right? I mentioned that's where we operate the only Idaho-based digital plan room. And everything's that way. And you just plug it into your takeoff machine or your takeoff program and it does it for you. And it is amazing the technology has come along. I look at the use of drones now in materials and AI. The stuff we're doing, technology has really changed that, has really made construction better.
Yep. And that's, I think the construction industry is under like a really interesting piece of it, right? And we were talking about this just before we kicked it off. I think the construction industry is primed for some disruption for a couple of reasons. And some of the stats I was looking at, McKinsey did a study here, I don't know, in 2022 roughly, that shows the productivity per hour worked in different industries, right? And if you look at like manufacturing industries and you look at other industries where they've streamlined and automated, that curve is on a constant increase of the productivity per hour worked,
Right.
where construction is actually on a decline of productivity per hour worked,
Yeah.
which is a really, and construction is generalized, right? That's
Yeah.
that's more of the AGC focus of it, not just dirt. That's
Right.
building vertical stuff, that's moving material and moving dirt, that's the aggregate industry
Right.
focused in on that. What do you think are some of the big influencers that are driving that decrease in productivity?
It's interesting because I see that. It's great to know there's a study that proves that because I see that in the field. On the upside, we have people like Autoval over in Napa who are driving that number the other way, right? If you can modularize something, if you can do the people who have, it's amazing that we're building hotels in California in Nampa, Idaho, right? We're building them room by room in Nampa, Idaho, putting them on a train and sending them to California where they're assembled like Lego blocks. And it's amazing that we can make that work. And the productivity of the people who work there is great because they're indoors. It never rains. There's no cords to trip on. Everything's controlled. So they're pushing the productivity up. But yet, as an average, it's pulling down because that means more people are on the other side. And those are the guys I see that are just doing what they've always done, and the rest of the world's moving on. It's not that I don't know if they're necessarily getting less efficient, but they're by comparison they are, right? Because this is how we've always done it. And that this is how we've always done it is not a recipe for success.
Yeah.
Right. That's not going to win at the end of the day. Um, and so when you say the industry is right for disruption, I believe that. I think there is going to be, I think a lot of that disruption is going to come from within. I think there are leaders within the construction industry that see it. They know they could do better. They know they can push that number. And at the end of the day, that's who I want to bet on. They're the guys who are going to make money. They're the guys who are going to be successful. This is how I've always done it. This is how we've always done it. There's one other thing that I might mention about that is in a state like Idaho, where we're growing so rapidly, it creates room at the bottom for people who don't have to innovate but still get paid, right? In a more competitive market where not everybody had 12 months of backlog, these guys wouldn't survive.
Yeah.
But because every electrician is busy, electrician number, you want to hire an electrician, you call electrician number 1. He's busy. You call it, well, electrician 95, who's not a very good electrician, probably not an AGC member, I'll say it, still gets work because there's just so much work to do. And I think in the more competitive, now I'm not looking for a recession, I'm not trying to put people out of work, but I think because they've not been forced to innovate, they haven't.
Yeah, and I think too the other piece of it, it's not just like the recession piece of that, but more and more projects are coming into the state of Idaho, right? And they on a tighter timeline, and the demands from the people building projects are changing, and they want it done more efficiently, they want it done more productively, and they want it done more accurately. And I think that's also what's creating that tension and pressure as well. And that pressure is going to create that, the higher expectations for us to perform at a higher level in the industry.
And for the good ones,
Yes.
for the people that I like to think are AGC champions, that's a good thing.
Yes.
We should perform better. We were looking for opportunities to improve. We want to distinguish ourselves from the guy next door who just, does the same thing every time. And so that's where I see the disruption coming. I see a new generation of leaders in construction who are now taking over from their dads or from their grandfathers or whatever, or even starting their own companies. And they're hungry. They want to innovate. They want to be better. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I do think that's one thing that I've seen too here recently, working with a lot of people that are my age. Honestly, they're coming in and they've grown up in the industry, and now they're ready to take the next step, and they're a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Because they have like the passion, the drive, the desire, and this willingness to innovate. And they're asking questions of us from a Caterpillar perspective that is like, hey, how am I going to move this material more efficiently?
Yeah.
And what's that going to look like? And that, to me, coming from the technology space and the world I play in, is like, heck yeah, let's go figure that out.
Yeah.
Because we want to make our customers more productive and efficient every single day. Because the more successful we make them, the better off we're going to build all the communities we live in.
That's exactly right.
And that's the beautiful thing.
And that's the thing. And that's at the end of the day.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about working in construction is getting in a truck and riding around with these guys and saying, I built that.
Yes.
To see that school, I built that. And so we have a staff of 12 at the AGC, and all but one of them are younger than me. We hire these young people, and it's hard to get them excited about processing paperwork. So I said, but the reason we're doing this is because look what we're doing. And I take him out to a school, and I said, an AGC member built this school that your kids or someone's kids are going to get an education at. And you at the AGC, because you did your job well, you helped that contractor who helped these kids. It's so exciting to get that into.
It is. So how, real quick, so just how large is the construction industry in the state of Idaho right now?
That's a good question. I'm glad you got that. And I actually have some numbers for it, so I'm going to check a little here and look at it. So
yes.
There are two ways to measure construction in Idaho. One is by dollar, right? And so right now, nationwide, construction makes up 4.5% of the national GDP. So of all the things produced in the country, 4.5% of that is construction. In Idaho, it's 6.7%.
Oh my goodness.
So almost half again the national average. And part of that is because Idaho's growing, and part of that is because Idaho has been smart the way it's invested state resources, but part of that is just because the influx of people who decided to make their home here and jobs and that kind of stuff. So construction's a big deal here. There's according to the Idaho Department of Labor, there's just short of 1 million people working. I get 962,000 people in Idaho have jobs. So there are 2 million people in Idaho 962,000 of them have jobs. 80,000 of that, or almost 10%, is in construction. There's only one other industry in Idaho that employs more people than construction. Guess what that is?
That's a great question. Honestly, I have no idea, because you blew me away on the construction stat, by the way, of the number.
80,000 people in Idaho work in
Yeah.
construction.
That just blows me away. So what is the number one?
Healthcare has 82.
No way. So we are just as large.
Just as large as healthcare. You think of all the hospitals, all the senior facilities, all the dentists, all that. There are 82,000 Idahoans work in healthcare, 80,000 in construction. That's amazing. There's that many people in Idaho earning. That includes home building. That includes all of construction.
Generalized construction.
80,000 people.
So when we think about that, one of the things that's been talked about in the industry for a lot of time is getting people to come into the industry. And when we bring the 80,000 people number and you compare that to healthcare, never heard that stat, but now now my brain's going to a lot of these conversations I've had with our customers saying, I can't get people to come to the industry and I can't get people engaged.
Exactly.
So what are your thoughts around that and the challenges?
It's incredible. You think about that. So there's already 80,000 Idahoans working it, and we're still short-staffed.
Yes.
Right? We still need more. Same with healthcare, by the way, right? They're the largest one, and they have even bigger workforce challenges than we have. It is a tough nut to crack. And so what we've been trying to do is little victories that add up and start telling. So, for example, and this may take a little long, for example, the Boise School District is the second largest school district in the state. They do not have shop classes at any of their high schools. They have a facility south of town where if a student wants to take a shop class, they have to take a bus from their school out to the facility south of town, have the class, and then come back.
Darrell Dennis Center, correct?
The Dennis Technical Center.
Yep.
They were going to close the Technical Center 6 years ago. Nobody was signing up for shop classes.
Okay.
And so we went to them and said, what if we took 8th graders and 9th graders and took them out and they just saw it? Maybe they would sign up if they knew it, if they knew what they were getting. Mm-hmm. And they said, all right, we could do that, but we can't afford the buses to bus the kids out there. So the AGC paid for the buses. And we took every 8th grader in the city and the school district of Boise out to the technical center. And enrollment in CTE classes includes not just construction, but also diesel mechanics, auto mechanics, and drafting and design is all taught out there at the technical center. Enrollment doubled the next year.
Just by creating awareness.
So then they came to us the next year and said, yeah, we'll pay for the busing. And like, oh, no. Oh, you've proved we're going to pay for the busing. But now we want to do a Friday night and Saturday open house for the parents. Because what happened was these kids came out and saw what was going on, saw how cool it was, and said, I want to go work construction. They were home, and their mom said, you're not wearing a hard hat the rest of your life. You're going to college. And so AGC punch and cookies so that these parents could come. And then we had to pay overtime for the staff because they coming in on Saturday and Friday. So AGC paid for the open house, and enrollment doubled again. So in 2 years, we went from we're closing the center to now we had to add on to the center and add more classroom space just through awareness. So we take that and we're doing that now in Shelley. We're doing that now in Pocatello. We're doing that now in Coeur d'Alene, where we're going to CTE programs and saying, what can we do to help you? What do you need?
Yeah.
And some of it's like, we need the lumber. Great. Here's $500. Go buy as much lumber as you need. In one school, we need an instructor. All right, it turns out we have a superintendent at one of our contractors who only wants to work part-time, but he'll come teach the other half the time. And we made that happen. And just going school by school, what do you need? How can we help you? What can we do to make this better?
Yeah.
And that's something the agency can do. Now, is that going to solve our problem? No, but it gets some people involved in it. The other thing we're doing is we're working on making sure that construction stays eligible for the launch program that the state happened, right? So enrollment at Idaho's 4 state universities all went up last year. They're all going up next year. We're going to have the largest class of freshmen at the 4 state universities next year than we've ever had in the state of Idaho. Part of that's due to launch because the state of Idaho is giving every graduating senior the opportunity to have a scholarship. That's great. We have a fantastic construction program at Boise State that's now eligible for that scholarship. So you want to go to college? You don't want to necessarily drive a Caterpillar the rest of your life. You don't necessarily want to dig ditches. Great. Go to Boise State, get a construction management. Go to Idaho and get a civil engineering degree. We offer an MBA with a construction emphasis through Boise State. So you can go get your master's of business associate. You can be a business, but still be in construction. So I'm the believer that there's not a magic bullet for the workforce development. There's a whole bunch of small things we can do. Just this past month, we had 190 kids at the Home Depot in Meridian, teaching them how to do sheds, how to do construction. I talked to a contractor yesterday that met 5 kids there. They're juniors and seniors in high school. They're offering 5 of them jobs for the summer. That's awesome. These kids are going to go work for a real contractor on a real wage before they ever finish high school.
Yeah.
They're going to be in construction the rest of their life.
Yeah. Your story really resonates, or that really resonates with me here for a couple reasons. So, and I think the awareness piece of it with the tech center is a good thing for a high school kid. Because I remember going to, I started out Western States fixing tractors. That's where I started here, right?
Right.
And so, that started back in high school, but I grew up around heavy equipment. My grandfather was involved. My dad was involved in different areas. But in high school, it's like, hey, you got to go to auto tech. That's what you did.
Yep.
But it was the auto tech program was in the high school. So it was very visible that it was physically there. Yeah. And then it kind of builds that process from there. And I remember doing some construction. We built a shed in high school. Yeah. We started doing all this other stuff, and you learn how to work with your hands and you learn how to do this process. And I think that awareness and what you described there is something that's massive for these high schoolers to understand that there can be a good career and a good path and a good way to build a family and build the life that you want in the industry.
Yeah, it's true. The average construction worker in Idaho makes higher than the average across all industries. So of the 5 categories we track, from labor all the way up to superintendent and project manager, Idaho is higher than in most other states in the Northwest. And that's a good thing because you can afford to live that. Now, trying to find a house in Boise
is a different problem.
It's a different problem. Yeah, but I can make $60,000 and live in Shelley, or I can make $70,000 and live in St. Mary's and raise a family in Idaho for that, right? And so we're proud of that. We want it to be good. We want people to not consider it a job, but consider it a career.
Yeah, spot on. So the awareness is really cool too, because the other thing that's been for the dirt customers in the dirt world that we deal with all the time is how do we get people wanting to come run machines, right? Because we need operators.
Well, part of that is the machines themselves are so damn cool.
They are cool,
right? And so in North Idaho, the Inland AGC in Spokane does an equipment rodeo kind of thing, and I think it's awesome to just let high school kids or somebody just see the equipment, and it's so cool. I don't know why you wouldn't want to run like
exactly. I think they just did theirs. I think it was Dozer Days.
Dozer Days
just happened.
Yeah,
a phenomenal event. We had a group of our people out there. Right. My favorite part of that whole thing is I started looking at the pictures. Yeah, our team up there in Liberty Lake, they put American flags on every machine.
Oh, that's
and it's
awesome.
It's just kind of cool.
A great idea.
It is like, so there's a cat dozer running, big old American flag hanging off the top, and it's like very visible. Just kind of that pride that they have, and to bring it and sharing it with people and high schoolers, and some great stories have come out of that, of just the awareness piece of it. So is one of the things is people come into the industry and construction industries. What do contractors need to do to help attract talent and to help attract people as well?
This goes back to what we were talking about, technology and disruption. I have a contractor. He's now retired. Just decided retiring was easier than changing. But we found him so he came to us desperate need, and through different things we were able to find him some people. We actually connected him through the Idaho Department of Corrections to some people who were coming out on parole and needed a job, which they make great construction workers. He said, well, the first thing you're going to do is, for the first 6 weeks you're going to do here is you're going to push a broom, you're going to be in the shop, and you're going to just watch. And then for the next 6 weeks you're going to ride around in a truck. And it was like 6 months before they actually got to do anything. And I said, none of these people are going to make it 6 months. You have to engage them right up front. And it's the same, whether it's construction or anything. People come into a new job want immediate gratification. And so my advice to contractors is, when you get someone, put him with your best superintendent, put him to work right then. And just let him do so. Let him make a mistake. right? Now, you don't want to put them in a D10 and have them roll down a hill, but let him dig something. Let him go do something. Let him engage and get them right in so that they can see the results. Because once they see the results, then they're hooked, right? And so, my advice, again, I'm not an expert at any of this, but my advice is get them engaged, show them a reward right up front, and then they get in. At least in my business, that's how I've tried to do it.
Yeah, and I think that that's in general, I think the society and the culture that we have today, there has to be like input and an output.
Yeah.
What energy did I put in and what is the result?
You may be too young for this, but 10 years ago, every national conference I went to had a speaker about how horrible the millennials are.
But
And how they're spoiled and they don't want to work and now I guess it's Gen Z or Gen Beta, whatever they were on. But every conference I went to, there was somebody talking about how horrible millennials are. And I didn't believe it then, don't believe it now. What I found is that if you gave them a vision and engaged them in the process, they're the most loyal, most dedicated, hardest working people I've ever worked with. They work a lot harder than my generation because they believe in the mission. They don't want to sit behind a computer and push the same button every day without knowing why. But if you can instill in them the vision of why this is important, they'll work their hearts out for you. And I think the same is true in construction. If you can explain to them, you're not laying brick, you're building a school. You're not laying brick, you're building a temple. That means something to someone as opposed to, yeah, I just lay brick for a living.
yeah, if I built a much more powerful site, I build schools.
Yeah.
I build things society gets to engage
That's
with is much more powerful than I just have to put a pipe in the ground.
I talked to, piping is a perfect example. Have you ever been in a hospital when it's under construction?
I've been inside log shredders.
Behind the wall, there's so much piping, there's so much technology, there's so much stuff that you never see when you're in the hospital because it's all behind the wall. All that stuff is so specialized and the people work so hard on that. And you talk to them, what do you do? He doesn't say I lay pipe. I build children's NICU units. I build rooms where families get to welcome new babies. And that is what you want to see. It is an amazing story to tell. And it starts, quite honestly, it starts with your guys. It starts with the excavators are the first people on the job site.
Yeah.
And so to say, what do you do? I turn dirt. No. I laid the foundation for what's going to be a life-changing facility.
Yep.
That's awesome.
It is really cool. So leadership is a big part of that for owners and business owners and those types of things. And because what you're describing a little bit is that as contractors and business owners is they have to also be a leader to help and create that inspiration and to help create that vision and paint that picture. So has the AGC done any work around leadership development or education around those things?
That's a really good observation because it is. I think that technical skill is important, but leadership and is just as important. Then the third element to that, I would say, is business savvy, right? Being able to
Acumen.
be acumen. That's right.
Yep.
So we do. The AGC for years offered what we call the AGC Academy, and you look around the valley now, and a lot of the companies that are run here are now run by people who do that. And we've worked on bringing that back. I mentioned the MBA program at Boise State. We actually helped us form that so that people can go learn how to run a business and get that training with a construction background. It's great because it's the same as if you were doing a normal MBA course, but every example is a construction example. Every project's a construction project. And so it works out really well for that. We offer training, we call it the supervisor training program. So you have a guy who has been working for you for a year or two and you're going to turn him into a supervisor. Well, just because you're really good at swinging a hammer doesn't mean you know how to teach someone else how to swing a hammer or that you know how to do payroll or So we offer STP, we call it, supervisor training program. And this is a 9-week course for people to learn how to transition from being a line worker to being a supervisor. We do the same for project managers and for that. For new business owners, we have a whole thing. It's on our website and it's free, by the way. It's 100% free. Don't have to be an agency member to do it. But Business 101. How do I create an invoice?
Yeah.
How do I get paid, right? What kind of insurance do I need? How do I do W-9 checks? Basic things that business owners have to do that they've never done before because they work for someone else. I see it all the time. I'm a really good carpenter, so I can go form my own carpentry business, and then they fail because they don't realize that running a business is different than just being an employee. And so we offer those type of trainings as well. So everything from basic 101 stuff all the way up to How do you inspire people? How do you lead? We teach classes on how to give a PowerPoint, because those are skills that your average construction worker may not have.
Yep.
And they need that if they're going to go into leadership.
Yep.
I think that it's a three-pronged stool of being able to run your business, being able to do the job, and then the leadership. And for leadership, to me, that's vision, HR, being able to motivate others is just as important sometimes as the other two.
Yeah, and I think the big thing, and we kind of talked about it earlier here, just where, we're seeing this generational shift happening in the construction world, right? Where these people are coming in with good core leadership and understanding that that's going to be required to be able to get us to the next piece of it,
Yep.
which is really fun to see. And I think we're seeing a shift in the construction industry, and the 80,000 number, we're going to have to be really good leaders if we're going to have that many people involved in our business and our industry as we move forward. There's no other way to do it.
You're exactly right. And so for us at the AGC, what that means is this year we've launched what we call the Construction Leadership Council. The CLC is the up and coming leaders of tomorrow. And so these are people who are project managers or mid-level that the company sees them moving up into senior leadership. And there's now over 120 people in Idaho engaged in our CLC. They meet every month to do something. One month is just drink beer. The next one they do, last month we did a cornhole tournament. In the fall, they're going to do a Habitat for Humanity house, those type of things. But it's networking, it's leadership. We bring in speakers to talk about how to move to that next level. Because when I started at AGC 12 years ago, I looked around the boardroom and I was the young guy in the room. I was 40 at the time, and I looked around the room and I thought, the average age of the AGC board was like dead minus 1 year. These were guys on their way out.
Yeah.
And I say guys, they were all old white men. Now I look around that board and I'm one of the oldest people in the room. The average age of a construction owner, of a construction company leader is now, I think my average age of my board is probably 45, 46.
Okay.
And there are more women in the room. There are more minorities in the room. And that is good for the industry as well.
It is. It just creates a different point of view and a different perspective.
That's
and
right.
That's what we need to listen to.
Yeah.
We need that diversity. We need that different thought process and the different disruption, if you want to call it one way or another, to help us motivated and move in the right direction.
You mentioned that about people coming into Idaho and project owners coming to Idaho. I look at that too. I'm very proud of the fact that I grew up here. I'm a 6th generation Idaho, and my kids are 7th generation. We were Idahoans before there was an Idaho. They thought they were living in Utah. They didn't even know they'd crossed the line. I'm proud of that, but I'm also proud of the fact that we have people who've chosen to come here, and they bring with them a different idea. They bring them a different perspective. We've got people who are moving up here from California and Nevada and other places, and they've got an idea that's like, hey, we could fix this. This thing we're talking about with DEQ and the permitting of the asphalt plans, we stole that from Montana. And what happened was a contractor moved from Montana down, and he was frustrated. Why does it take me a year to get a permit? I can do it in 2 months in Montana. Well, shit, if Montana can do it, Idaho can do it.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it. And that type of input makes us all stronger.
Yep.
We need people who have an Idaho sense. We don't want to, the last thing we want to do is having so many people move here that it changes Idaho. We want to stay Idaho, but we can always be better.
Yeah. And improvement and take ideas from others and apply them. And like that asphalt plant's a great example of how that happened. And then the need for asphalt and aggregates is only growing in the state of Idaho. And I was talking to a contractor, and I guess I never realized this because I took aggregates for granted, right? It just shows up and it's there. But there's a potential shortage of aggregate, of sand and gravel, which you never would think of.
Yep.
And so I think the work there to shorten that permit time so we can have the aggregates to build the facilities we're in is a huge thing.
It's very interesting. We've actually been pushing. It's a problem across the entire industry. It's especially a problem, of course, in the road industry. In that because they use so much aggregate. ITD has not opened up a new gravel pit in over a decade, and so we're working with them now to identify new first to do a comprehensive survey of what we do have. And then second, identify shortages in places where we should go be buying ground and doing that kind of stuff. Because there is a shortage of that. Look what happened, in the concrete world when it comes, to fly ash. And the same thing can happen if you lose, rock and sand. It's amazing. You would think we just take it for granted, but it's not.
There's a lot of work that goes into that. And I'm fairly aware of the mining industry too, and it's kind of the same way. Is the mining industry and the construction industry, I don't think everybody realizes that everything that's part of our life, this room, it has to come from the ground at some point.
Yep.
That's where it starts. If we want the life that we have today and the world that we have today, we've got to get minerals out of the ground one way or another. We got to move dirt. We've got to do this types of stuff to keep the industry moving forward. And it's really inspiring to hear what you guys are doing and driving that forward, because it's a big part of the society we have today.
Yeah, if you think about, we've talked about the growth in our industry, just think about the growth in the state itself, right? I cannot wait for Highway 16 to open. If you live in Boise,
Yeah.
if you live anywhere near Eagle Road, you
Mhm.
cannot wait for Highway 16 to open. That's the first major new road that Idaho's built in years,
Mhm.
right? We've improved roads, we've widened roads, but to build a whole new road
Yeah.
is exciting, and it's going to be a game changer, I hope, for the valley. We're looking to where we can do that elsewhere, right? We need another bridge in Twin Falls. Um, it's going to be expensive. It's going to be difficult. If Evil Knievel can't make it across that river, how we expect ITD to do it twice?
Yeah.
But we're going to. We're going to need a bridge there. And those are big, scary, expensive things that need to be done.
Yep.
We need a third lane between Boise and Mountain Home,
Yes.
right? It is dangerous to drive on that road without a third lane. That's going to require a whole lot of concrete.
Mhm. So what are some of the biggest exciting things that are in front of us for the state of Idaho? You mentioned some really cool projects that were on the radar, but there's got to be some
Yeah.
other really cool things that are floating out there.
There are so exciting. I mentioned the bridge in Twin Falls. I think that's exciting. I think building a new bridge across the Snake River Gorge is going to be an exciting project. And it's a little ways away, but we're working on it already. Right now, under construction is the new interchange in Jerome, which is where the new highway would come, the new bridge would come across that. And so that's exciting for there. We're almost done. By this fall, we'll be pretty much wrapping up the new interchange in Pocatello. And that's an exciting place there too, where two freeways seamlessly integrate. It's been dangerous since it was built, and fixing that is exciting. Um, I'm excited about building a new interchange north of Idaho Falls. It's a huge, expensive thing. That will be great. The theory will be you can get on the freeway at BYU, Utah, in Provo, and get off the freeway at BYU, Idaho, and Rexburg, and not see a red stoplight. You go from campus to campus on freeway the entire way.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's exciting.
That is cool.
That is cool. That is very cool. I'm excited. We're wrapping up another project in Rathdrum in North Idaho, a new interchange there, the state highway and the freeway. And when that's done, that's the last big hurdle before we build the third lane. So there'll be a third lane on the freeway from Sherman Street and Coeur d'Alene all the way to State Line, where the bridge is. And so that, again, a life share. People, I think people who live in these communities understand it, how much time Idahoans waste sitting in traffic, just not going anywhere. And if you live in Coeur d'Alene and work in Spokane, or live in Spokane and work in Coeur d'Alene, you spend an hour and a half of your life every day sitting in traffic. And that's not productive, right? And so to fix that will be a huge boon to that local economy. Giving everybody back an hour of their life is a good thing.
Mhm.
On the construction side, on the vertical side, I'm really excited about the work that's going on downtown, right? So right now we've got 2 hotels that are being built right next to each other, and the owner of that property has announced he's building an apartment complex across the alley. It'll be the tallest building in Idaho when it's done. It's exciting. The Arthur just opened up, the big blue mirrored building downtown. The Arthur just opened up. It is short of the Zions Bank building by the steeple. If
Okay.
you actually stood on it has those of you who are not from Boise, it has a pool on the roof, right? And it's freaking awesome. But when you're up there, you're looking down on the Zions Bank building, but the steeple goes. So the Zions Bank building is still technically the tallest building in Idaho. This new apartment complex will be 10 stories taller than that.
Oh my goodness.
And it'll be right in downtown. It'll be 35, 36 stories tall.
So the skyline of Boise is changing.
Skyline Boise is changing, and that's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. I'm excited about, there are little things I'm excited about. I'm excited about widening 55 through South Canyon County. I like to go out there and drink wine, and being able to get out there on Sunny Slope faster will be great. It'll open up a whole new part of town for development, that type of stuff. I'm excited about the LDS Church just announced they're building a new temple in Caldwell. That's an exciting project. Anybody who gets to work on those projects, remember them, because they're such beautiful buildings.
Mhm.
I'm excited about the work we have going on at Boise State. we've broken ground on the new construction management program there. It'll be the first building in the city of Boise that uses mass timber, or the compressed timber,
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
it's called.
Yep.
The well, like the in Moscow at the University of Idaho, the new basketball center is built out of it. But Boise Cascade has donated all this great timber product, and it's going to be a beautiful building right in the heart of Boise, right on Boise State's campus. It's the construction management building. It's going to be exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So data centers is another big thing we've had going
Data
on
centers,
here.
yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we've got, one going, another one announced. So I think two more that they're talking about.
Oh yeah.
They're big projects, and they're exciting projects. It's repetitive, right? We know how to do this now, and so now that we've got one, there's no reason why we can't have 5 or 6 of them.
Mm-hmm.
The limiting factor there, of course, is water and energy, and we've figured out a solution for that, a uniquely Idaho solution for that, right? So the unique Idaho part of it is the energy that these data centers are using is almost entirely renewable, because we're using the rivers to do it, right? We're using hydroelectricity to do it. That's great. And then the water issue, the data centers being built now by Meta will actually contribute more clean water than it takes, because they're taking wastewater from the city of Kuna and reprocessing it and using that water to cool the machines in the data center. So we're actually reducing discharge and increasing the amount of fresh water. It's an amazing thing. And not only that, the city of Kuna didn't have to pay for that facility. Meta paid for it.
Yeah.
And so that's an exciting thing. Why don't we do a lot of these? I mentioned at the beginning, one of our jobs is to advocate. There was actually a bill last year in the Idaho legislature to take away the tax break we give to data centers, which would have stopped any new construction of data centers in Idaho. And the AGCs fought and killed that bill.
Oh.
Can you imagine? This is such a great thing for our communities. It's such a great thing for, and even beyond construction, once they're up and running, those are good paying jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason that we get these in Idaho is because we exempted the computers inside from the personal property tax. And a lot of people don't pay, a lot of your customers pay personal property tax, but a lot of general Idahans don't pay personal property tax. What that means is the state of Idaho taxes every single thing you own. The beds in your house, the furniture, the carpet, everything you own is subject to a tax every year. However, there's a limit. And if you have more than $500,000 worth of, less than $500,000, you have to pay the tax. So 99% of us don't pay the tax, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing in my house worth $500,000.
Yeah.
Right. And so we don't pay personal property tax. But inside these data centers, there are thousands and thousands of computers, which are all personal property. They have to be replaced every 3 years. And when they do that, they'd have to pay that tax again and again and again. So we exempted that. And what that means is that they pay the tax when they build the center, but they don't have to keep paying it every year. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. Mm-hmm. There was a bill to take that away so that there would never be another data center built in Idaho. And AGC and others worked to kill that bill. That's the type of thing that no single construction company is going to have time to notice about. But we're all going to benefit from that work. Mm. That's the type of short-sightedness that we have to keep vigilant on. We all think, because we're in this industry, that growth is good. But there are people that don't like growth. There are people that, don't like technology.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting to think about the data center piece of it is the downstream effect to jobs and the impact to the community on a positive side.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you look at it as it's during the build phase, there's obviously lots of activity and a lot of jobs that feed, right? But then think about the water treatment plant and the process you described for the city of Kuna. And that's massive and city of Kuna has grown like crazy too. They've done a phenomenal job at building what they've got going on out there, attracting people, building schools. They've done a great job in the impact that it's going to have in doing it the clean way, doing it the right way. And then the ongoing piece of that is just huge.
It is huge. And doing it the right way is important. I reminded that. So just this week, ITD announced a new study on what to do with Highway 69, which is Meridian Road, which is the main way to get to Kuna. Traffic there has become pretty bad, and there's a lot of accidents. And so fixing Meridian Road is going to be an important project for the Valley, because we don't want to punish Kuna for doing it right. Right? They've been really careful. The mayor and the city council there have done a good job of growing naturally. And so you don't have, in some places you have a whole bunch of farmland and then the subdivision pops up. Well, in Kuna, they've tried to manage it so that it's growing more naturally. but they should be punished for that. So fixing Highway 69 is an important part of that continued growth. And then we haven't even talked about Micron.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at what's going on out there at Micron, and it is incredible. That big of an investment, the largest construction project ever in the history of Idaho, bigger than any dam, bigger than any reservoir, bigger than any freeway we've ever built. The Micron project is phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's coming along really good. I mean,
It is. It is. A project that size is going to have bumps.
Oh
A
yeah.
project that size is going to have unique challenges. But for what it is, it's coming along really well
Yeah.
and fast.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there are people that, oh, they're behind schedule. The fact that they're only this far behind schedule is amazing to me. I expected it to be much worse.
Yeah.
They're doing a great job out there.
It's massive, and those things are going to happen. You're going to have ups and downs in any project, and you're going to have those things from that piece of it, and it's just cool to see what's happening there.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, let's talk a little bit about construction and the dirt contractors, right? In
Okay.
your perspective. So if you look at the dirt world that we live in, the Western States Cat lives in every day, what advice would you have for anybody in the dirt world today? Right. And take your 12 years
Yeah.
of experience, right? And if you say, hey man, if you could just do these 5 things from my perspective,
Right.
this is how it would not only benefit you, and this is how it would benefit the community.
That's a tough question. I love the dirt guys. My heart's really into it. They're the first ones on the job site, right? And so they set the tone and the structure for everything that follows them. I'm also very, very proud of the fact that in the AGC family are a lot of excavators. We probably have, gosh, I want to say 50, 60 excavator companies that are part of our organization. And I trust that because it says right in the name, Associated General Contractors. But the fact that these excavators trust us to be a partner with them is really important to me. And we work really hard on their benefit. I think my advice would be, you can help yourself and you can help me and you can help the industry by being good stewards, right? So for me in the dirt world, that means being safe. We all know of an excavator who's no longer in business, who had a habit of cutting corners, and they're not in business for a reason anymore. Don't cut corners. Don't put people's lives in danger. Be safe. There's so much in excavation that could go wrong, right? That you have to just be safe. It's not like a painter makes a mistake and someone loses their lives. An excavator makes a mistake and someone dies. And so be safe. The second one is be a good steward of the environment. We have stormwater specifications and requirements, and I know that there are people who get frustrated with having to have a mailbox and a sign on it. They're there for a reason. Not only is it important to control stormwater, especially during the excavation phase, but when that dirt runs out and runs down the street and into someone's yard, it gives us all a black eye. And so if we're not careful with our stormwater during excavation, it sets back the entire industry because we just become those guys, right? Again, that's a unique challenge to excavation because it's not like the painter has to worry about stormwater or the electrician has to worry about it. And so that's important. The third thing I would say is don't sell yourself short. There are people who, I think I probably even said it earlier, oh, I'm not going to dig ditches the rest of my life. Digging ditches is important. No other construction can happen until that excavation is done. And you should be proud of that. You should be part of that and wear it with a badge of honor. And then it would go to anybody in the construction industry is stay open to innovation, especially in excavation. When you look at, I'm doing the same thing. I'm digging the same ditch that I did yesterday. No, there's probably a better way to do it. There's a smarter way to do it. There's a way to do it with less fuel. There's a way to do it with greater accuracy. And so let's continually be innovating.
Yep. So as you think about that in the dirt world, what advice do you have for somebody that's building a business, right? And I mean that as so when you look at excavation companies, there's lots of different perspectives on building a business. You got to build a brand. You got to build a brand that people want to be a part of and come to. You've got to build your brand so that way you can go bid jobs and get jobs.
Yep.
And that's a lot of new stuff from there. So what have you seen work really well for construction companies to build a brand and an identity that people can connect with?
All right. I'm going to get there. It's going to take me a minute.
Yep.
I'm going to start with what I do, right?
There you go.
So I went to college, I got a degree in government. I went to work in DC. I worked in DC for 6 years. Two of them was I was a lobbyist. And then I came back to Idaho, and I'm still a registered lobbyist. But lobbying is a dirty word in a lot of places, right? I used to teach a class called Lobbying for Farmers, and I would go out to farm bureaus and weed organizations and other groups around the country and teach farmers what to do when they came to DC, right? We're going to go fight in DC, meet your congressman. What do you say? What do you do? And I told them then, and what I tell excavators now is the only thing you have of any value is your name, is your integrity. And whatever you do, you have to protect that, because whatever brand you build is going to rely on that. And so then you come back to the construction world. I've been a supervisor. I've been a foreman. I'm going to start my own company. The first thing you have to do is protect your integrity and protect your brand. If I don't trust you as a person, I'm not going to trust your company. If I don't trust you as a person, I'm not going to want to do business with you. And you may be the cheapest one, you may be the lowest bidder, but if I don't trust you, I'm not going to believe your numbers. And so the first thing you have to do is build that. And if you can't do that, stay where you're at, right? But you've got to be able to demonstrate to people that you're an honest broker, that you have integrity. And if you do that, then the brand will build itself, right? There are contractors in this valley, across the state, who pay above and beyond what they have to choose the subcontractors they want to work with because they trust them. And that's worth it. I mean, you have to be able to do that. The second thing is again, I'm not in the business, but I've seen people come, I've seen people fail. Is, to me, it's better to have a handful of really good customers than it is to have a whole bunch of bad customers. So if you can find 2 or 3 owners, 2 or 3 GCs that you get along with, that you can work with, stick with them. A couple of years ago, an excavator was the president of the AGC. And he missed a meeting. And I called him up and I said, hey, I thought it was my calendar, but XYZ general contractor called me. They had a problem. I had to go. I'm like, I get it. If you've got a good relationship with a GC that you can go back to, that's worth it. Because when the tough times come, and there will be tough times, right? Everything construction is secular. Right now we're riding this Micron wave, we're riding this growth wave. Everything's great. Everyone's hiring. Everyone's getting bonuses. There will be a day when there's not enough work. And when that happens, it's better to have a solid reputation, a solid connection to 2 good GCs than it is to have a lukewarm relationship with 10, because half of those 10 are going to go away. So to me, it always comes back to focus on the one thing you can control, which is you. Focus on integrity, focus on what you do. And you do your job really well, people will notice.
Yeah, and I think that's phenomenal advice for anybody that's in the industry, honestly.
Yeah.
And because the one thing we do have is our word.
Yeah.
And the integrity that we act with, and how we do that, and then it builds from there to move forward. So I think that's great. And
Well, you take that from the contractor point of view and take it to your point, as a supplier.
Oh yeah.
That's even more important, right? As a contractor, I got to know that you've got my back. I got to know that when something goes wrong, you're going to have me. And if I know that, then it's worth a little more money, right? I'm not always going to go buy the cheapest thing if I know that you've got my back when it comes tough.
Yep. And as being part of Caterpillar, we're definitely the cheapest guy on the block, for sure.
For sure.
Totally facetious there, right? Totally facetious, right? We're definitely not the cheapest, right? But our focus is making sure that we help our customers be successful.
Yeah.
And that's our drive, and that's our mission. And literally our mission statement here at Western States is building our communities for a better tomorrow, which is really cool to be a part of.
It is.
So, and this conversation reminds me of, so I attend the gala usually every year. And one of my favorite is an award that you give every year towards the end of it. Pat McEntee won that SIR award.
That's right.
Which is really in alignment to some of this conversation that we're talking about around integrity, doing what you say you're going to do, and executing on that.
Right.
And Pat's had a massive influence on our industry and won that award. So
he has. I think about that, and everyone knows now that Central Paving has been sold. They're part of Idaho Materials and Construction now. Pat's a 3rd, 4th generation contractor, right? And him and his brother Terry ran Central Paving together. Terry had received the award 10 years ago. Their dad had received the award 15 years ago, 16 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And so now to be able to give Pat one too is exciting. The other thing that I think adds value to the story is he was selected for the award in July, 4 months before we knew he had sold the company. So he didn't get it as a going away present. He had earned that award before we even knew the company was being sold. And the way Pat did that was back to what we talked about, integrity and doing that. Everybody knew that if you hired Central Paving to work for you, you were going to get a quality project, right? In the asphalt business, one of the toughest customers in the world is the Federal Aviation Administration. The FFA has some of the strictest specs, the most difficult working conditions that you do. They almost exclusively worked with Central Paving because they loved them so much. They had that good of a reputation for integrity. I think it's a good example of putting your all in and getting it back. Pat not only did that for his company, but he did it for the industry. He represented the AGC and asphalt suppliers on thousands of meetings, hundreds of task force, negotiated rule. I tell you, I go to these meetings. And we sit down with ITD on one side of the table, contractors on the other side of the table, and we fight over whether it should be 0.0014 or 0.0013. And it'll take us 2 hours to fight over whether it's point. It just killed. Pat went to those and never complained. Pat does. Mike Burke from Central Paving, or from CPC does that too, just on the concrete side. But Pat was our asphalt guy. He would just go and get into the weeds and fight over the little tiniest things to do that. He also had high expectations for everyone. You talk about one bad apple ruining the whole barrel. Pat was very protective of the industry as a whole, and when someone did something wrong, he'd call them out because that gave somebody a black eye. They gave the entire industry a black eye, and so I'm excited about that. I actually saw Pat just last week at a Bishop Kelly event. He's loving retirement. I asked him to serve on a committee, and he said no. He said, "Don't come. It's just a little too soon right now."
Oh, that's
so
cool.
I think that's the type of thing that we look at why we're blessed to be in Idaho, right? We have this tradition. Here's a family that's come up and done that. They did well and did that. And the company's going to survive just part now of a larger organization. So we're excited about that.
Which is really cool. And I think Idaho has a ton of opportunity in front of us and a ton of growth. I don't think it's slowing down at all. And just I'm still blown away by the stats that you gave on the number of people.
Well, if you look at that, and I said everything is cyclical, and there will be a slowdown. We just don't know when it's going to be. There are two economists that I listen to quite closely, and I recommend to anyone. One is from Zions Bank, and he's from Salt Lake. His name is Robert Spenlove, and Robert is a nerd of a nerd of a nerd. He builds these giant spreadsheets, and he tracks this littlest tiny stuff, and he's Excel sheets everything, right? He probably Excel sheet what he orders for breakfast. I mean, he just everything he does is that. And then there's a guy at Washington Federal in Seattle. He was like a long-haired hippie who just flies by seat of his pants or whatever he does or whatever, and completely opposite approaches to the same subject. Both of them have told me repeatedly over and over again, there may be a slowdown, but it's not going to affect Idaho. When a slowdown does happen, Idaho's in a great position to weather that. For completely different reasons, different perspectives, they've come to the same conclusion. This is where you want to be.
Which is a great place to be.
Yeah, it's a great place.
I love it.
Like I said, I'm excited that I grew up here. I'm excited that my kids have gotten to grow up here. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
No. Well, cool. Well, thank you, Wayne, for joining me today.
Thanks for what you guys do. Western States is a great part of the AGC. Been members forever and a day. Support our events and that kind of stuff. But more importantly, what you do for the industry, the leadership and the technology that you all bring to the industry is really important. Now more than ever, we need suppliers and contractors working together to make the industry better. We need more people. We either have to get a lot more people or a lot smarter about how we're doing it. And I think Western States is at the forefront of that. And so I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to work with you guys. Anything we can do to help, we want to be part of it.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, thank you, Wayne, again. Appreciate you joining me. Thanks for making the time. This is
Happy
totally
to do
us. Yes, sir.